There's a world of difference. I'll just
I know you only have 10 minutes, but
like, brother, how much time
yeah,
you got? Okay, I'm gonna give you the short version, just the top five from the platform. But if I forget, you have to remind me to tell everybody what Malcolm said about liberals and conservatives
yes.
before we
Yep.
close out. Okay, can you do that for me?
Yes, I will. I got it.
So here are the top five platform pieces. The first is universal single payer healthcare. Universal single payer healthcare is something that has been that's supported. The most recent polling, 81% of Californians are in favor of it. The Democrats actually passed it in 2006 and in 2008 when Arnold Schwarzenegger was the governor because they knew that he would veto it for them. Okay. So they could pretend to be doing something that the people wanted and blame it on a Republican when they didn't get it. They've controlled the governor's mansion ever since and have never gotten universal single payer health care. Gavin Newsom ran on it in 2022 and then stabbed the people not in the back, but in the face as soon as he got into power. If you think any of these Democrats are going to get you universal single payer health care, then there's a bridge in San Francisco I'd very much like to sell to you because
Which
you
one?
let's go Golden Gate, right? So because they are going to keep doing the thing where Lucy pulls the football out from in front of Charlie Brown because their corporate and billionaire sponsors are never going to allow them to deliver on something that's massively popular. People ask me how I'm going to pay for it. It's the easiest thing in the world to pay for. 70 cents on every healthcare dollar that's spent in the state is already covered by the taxpayers, and 30 cents on every healthcare dollar goes to the healthcare companies and the insurance companies. All we need to do is move them out of the way. Hashtag free Luigi, right? And then we are already able to pay for the healthcare that we all need. I'm going to tax the shit out of billionaires, but I don't need to do that in order to pay for the healthcare. That comes with the housing program. So housing first is my policy. When you go home for the holidays, we just celebrated the Eid. Everybody eats before anybody gets seconds, correct?
Yes.
So that same rule applied to housing. We cannot have 14 vacant units for every homeless person in the city of San Francisco, but that is currently the case. And statewide, there are 1.2 million vacant housing units and 187,000 homeless people sleep on the streets every night. If you talk to those Democrats, they're going to talk about the housing crisis needs to be resolved with more building of housing. This is handouts to Gavin Newsom's developer buddies from our taxes. What I'm going to do is tax the shit out of Blackstone and BlackRock, which has purchased 35 to 40% of some markets. I'm going to tax them at such a high rate that they can't wait to sell those back to the state. And that becomes the basis for social housing, not public housing, not the concrete cages that I grew up in as a kid, because I didn't live at the same street address for a calendar year until I turned 9 years old. I was houseless myself as a child and in and out of public housing and precarious housing situations. So when I talk about resolution to the homelessness crisis, it is not an abstract question for me. It's a moral imperative because I have experienced it, right? So right now, what we can do is have social housing, mixed income in different neighborhoods, not concentrated in ghettos. And that's built on the model of places like Vienna, Austria, or Singapore, where 60% in Vienna of the market is actually publicly owned and operated at cost rather than for profit. And that serves as a natural check on speculation in the market. We know that right now, every $100 median increase in the average rent leads to a 9% increase in the homelessness rate. Between those first two pillars of the platform, universal single payer healthcare that's comprehensive of mental health treatment and addiction treatment, as well as vision and dental, and none of the Democrats are talking about that, that will take out, along with the housing fix, the things that are driving the homelessness crisis inside the state, which brings us to the third point, human rights. Wait, get a Democrat to say what I'm about to say next. As governor of the state of California, I am not going to comply with any unconstitutional federal orders, which means that before ICE so much as touches a hair on the head of any California resident, they're going to have to go through every lawyer and law enforcement officer in the state, period. Right. And the Democrats could do that right now if they wanted to, but it would alienate their donor base. They are in a position to fight back to defend our civil liberties, but they are a boxer that is getting paid more money to throw the fight than the prize money to win the fight. They are not going to alienate their donors, which brings us back to kind of core question, right? Everybody presents the Democrats as the party of harm reduction. but I follow the money. If you make a Venn diagram between the donor base to the Democrats and the donor base to the Republicans, you will be staring through a single circle, right? So
Especially in California with the oligarchy, the Silicon Valley openly, shamelessly, nakedly saying we're going to spend up to $500 million on the primary race.
correct. So and Matt Mahan was there some
Mayor San Jose.
right, and just so and understand, right, that there are 9 families in Silicon Valley that control $683 billion of personal wealth. And the wealth inequality inside the state, as I mentioned, has been an outcome that has been produced by Team Blue. They are not going to fix it. They are not the solution. They are the problem. So healthcare, housing, human rights, that's our rights and our civil liberties, but it's also protection of vulnerable communities, marginalized communities, and especially the trans community, because the trans community is more scapegoated and targeted than any other community. And so
Gavin Newsom said they're not normal.
He said they're not normal. And the thing is that my thing is that people ask me like as a practicing Muslim, you defend the trans community. You're goddamn right, I do.
Law, Butch. How dare you?
Right. Well, but this is the point, right? Is that it's not just the secular U.S. Constitution that has me doing that. It's that my faith has taught me that no matter who you pray with or who you lay with, that your rights and your dignity are sacred. Your right to live, your truth is a sacred choice. There's no compulsion in religion, and free will is the most precious thing that God gave to human beings. So I'm going to defend every marginalized community, because nobody, including obviously the trans community, should face oppression, discrimination, and especially violence because of who they are. So whatever your gender identity or expression, you will get protection. You will not be treated like a political football the way that the Democrats have treated communities like a political football. So we've got through 3. I'm going to try to wrap up the last 2. 4, divestment from occupation, right? Tom Steyer is an anti-BDS, pro AB 715, AB 715, which is the rule that essentially criminalizes teaching about Palestine in our educational system.
Very, very quickly, just so people are on the same page, for those who don't know, most of you do, BDS is boycott, divestment, and sanctions.
Correct. So they do not, in other words, Tom Steyer still wants it to be illegal for you to boycott, divest, or sanction the Zionist entity that conducted the most heinous genocide that any of us have witnessed in our lifetimes. And Steyer refuses to call Gaza a genocide. Becerra refuses to call it a genocide. Katie Porter, who I agree with you at one point was a progressive, she was a progressive except for Palestine. She was always PEP. But after she got the brakes beat off her by Adam Schiff, she became a corporate Dem like all of the others. And she made her I stand with Israel statement, just like the rest of Team Blue Genocide. And this is the reason why, despite my high polling, they had to try to strike me, because I was required to be allowed to participate in those debates. And do you think that Barry Weiss at CBS News was going to let CBS LA air a debate where you have a Black Muslim anti-Zionist candidate saying that we are going to divest the state of California from any investment in the Zionist entity, and not only no investment in Israel, but no investment in Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, General Dynamics, Northrop Grumman, or Boeing, the war machine. This is the principal reason why, just like they moved to spend $30 million to knock Thomas Massie out of a Republican primary in Kentucky, that's the reason why they have moved against me, because this is an existential threat to Zionism. I want to divest from occupation, and we know that this is popular across the ideological spectrum. Our coalition is not just leftists. Our coalition is not just progressives. It's centrist. People hear me banging on Dems, and a lot of Blacks for Trump and Latinos for Trump and white working class voters that voted for Bernie and then voted for Trump. They love my Black ass, because I am not afraid to say, yeah, fuck Donald Trump, but fuck Gavin Newsom too. And they're part of the same system that is screwing the working guy. Because across the ideological spectrum, nobody wants our elected officials to swear an oath on, the
crypto, AI,
right, crypto, AI. or Israel, right? Like an Israeli flag. So we need to divest from this, divest from Palantir, divest from all of these things that diminish us. And the last point is invest in us. So divest from occupation, invest in education, right? I already talked about housing, healthcare, but listen, my father was a locksmith that had a sixth grade education. And he hustled to pay the bills and he stayed strapped at all times. Everything that I've been able to accomplish in my life was because I was able to achieve something through educational opportunities. And I grew up in the worst neighborhoods and I didn't know how good I was at school until I got to college because I could throw a baseball 90 miles an hour when I was 17 years old. And it turned out that I got a PhD from the University of Pennsylvania. I taught at Northwestern University for 4 years, Michigan for 10, now UCSB for 8 years. And yes, that's 22 years. I'm 52 years old because even light skinned black don't crack. I know you wouldn't necessarily have guessed, my age, but all of that is to say is that I want the same educational opportunities that allow me to transform my life for all of the folks in the state of California. My wife, beautiful Mexican American woman, Clementina Aragon, daughter of two immigrants that came to this country undocumented, right? Uh, Stockton, where she grew up. I want the amount that is spent per pupil to be the same as it is in Beverly Hills. That's what I'm taxing the billionaires for. I'm taxing the billionaires so that we can fund an equitable educational system because some folks are born on third base and act like they hit a triple. Whereas others of us, we have to fight to get one at bat. So it's universal pre-K, level the spending gap, and then free tuition college education, because ultimately the student loan crisis is something that was manufactured by the removal of free public college in places like California. And this is a form of class warfare because you know who doesn't have student loan debt? Rich kids, right? They don't have to take out student loans. So right now, working class families are bearing the brunt of this. I want the economic motor of California's growth to be its educated populace, not exploitative tech bros.
I got to bring in Chris in a minute, but you answered